happens all around us. There are certain guiding principles that if we keep that in mind, we can address change, and we can combat it, we can remove the barriers. So we're going to bring to mind what are some of those things. We can predict what's going to happen. And you know, you are all educational leaders, whether you are in the classroom, whether you're in the administrative office, and if you have the ability to predict what's going to happen, then that gives you a heads up. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk about the human side of change, because we have to realize that we have to have, as individuals within the school, we have to have our needs met. You know, when you think about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy, don't talk to me about self-actualization until you fit, until you know. You know, we have to have our needs met. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about this process, and I'm going to repeatedly say the term process because in the research that I've done and with my colleagues, I've been researching PLCs for about 15 years now, and we do not view it as a program whatsoever. And I think that schools or individuals or districts that view it as a program sometimes misstep. It's not that they're not doing a good job, but they're not really facilitating the process. Because what happens with programs? They come and they go. But when you have an infrastructure that allows you to address issues, then it moves along so much easier. And if we have time, I'll share with you a district that I've been working with that has this process in place. And they've had it for a while, and it is truly district-wide and embedded in each of their schools. And right now, with all the changes that are going on, there's no panic. They have such a learning process in place that they are just digesting and moving each and every one of those along. And of course, with that process, we're going to talk about collaboration. Collaboration is a critically important word. And then the last thing we're going to finish off is all about the stages of concern that I was telling you. So that, those of you, especially those of you that are administrators and then the teachers, that you know how to address the needs of your colleagues so that we can all move forward. I want to tell you a little story. I don't know how many of you remember Eastman Kodak. We don't hear about Eastman Kodak too much. Eastman Kodak used to be a huge old company. They were the tops in photography, in print photography was their first. They were the first to mass market the still as well as the motion camera. I mean, everyone knew Eastman Kodak. They made lots of money. They made money on the chemicals. They made money on the papers. Well, then all of a sudden this digital technology comes out. And they start really getting a lot of competition. So they say, okay, we have to work harder. So salespeople, I need you to go out and make more sales. You know, groups, you need to contact all your companies. And they work harder and harder. But their sales continue to decline, regardless of how hard they were working. And then all of a sudden, Wall Street comes out and says, you know what? This is an obsolete company. Their products are no longer meeting our needs. So even though we see that they are working hard, even though we see that they have made modifications in their organization, they're not meeting the needs. How would you say with that little story, give me, oh, and by the way, this is an interactive session. And listen, I haven't been out of the classroom for too long, I still am, so I understand the concept of proximity. You know, if we need to do that, we need to do that. How would you say the Eastman Kodak Company, what are some similarities that we have with what's happening in education right now? What would be some things that would be similar? And you know, since a lot of you were students with me, I know names like corporate, you know, you go all a lot. But what would be some things? Yes.
I think we're working harder to adapt to all the changes that are currently taking place. We're definitely working harder.
Definitely working hard. You know, we might hear comments about some schools not being effective. Teachers are working hard. Educators are working hard. So we're definitely working hard. Are we always working in the right manner?
No.
No, Eastman Kodak is working hard, but they weren't meeting the specific needs at the time. Okay, however, they were a large organization, we're a large organization. Education is a huge organization. What else?
I think it's hard for veteran teachers to adjust to the changes like technology that we have to incorporate in the classrooms and webcams and everything else.
Excellent point, Pam. So some teachers are represented the I4S. And what do you think, when he was up in front of everybody at a big conference presenting the I4S, what was his staff doing back at the office? Working on the five. They were the best. They were the most in the forefront, and yet they were not satisfied with what they had because they knew it could be better. And that's why when we talk about teachers working hard and schools working hard and districts working hard, sometimes we're not always putting our efforts as appropriately as they should be. Also, long gone with accountability now, it's no longer that you are the top school, you are the top class, you are the top grade, and you can just take it easy. The status quo is no longer acceptable. You have to continue to move forward. And when you think of a company like Apple, they recognize this. They are always looking to be innovative, to be creative, to think, okay, so we're the best. If we want to maintain that level, we cannot maintain what we are doing. We have to change. And I think about, because I've done, work for years in the whole change process, and a lot of what we have in education stems from the business world. We're going to talk about learning communities. Learning communities started off with the study of very highly effective corporate organizations, and why, like Apple, do they continue to do so well, whereas other companies that might have had good, good staff didn't do as well, because those ones that were always on the cutting edge always continued to learn. They were a true learning organization, as Apple is a true learning organization. So that's one of the things. So unfortunately, we've done some things. We've followed a little bit in the past, and the path that he's been correct, but we have to make sure. Now you see a picture of a jigsaw puzzle. Change process. Why would we say it's like a jigsaw puzzle? What's going on? Think of what's going on in the state right now. Do you see that as a jigsaw puzzle? Are all the pieces readily fitting? Do you feel like you might have some missing pieces from the box? Would you like to see the picture on the outside of the box to give you a better perspective of where you're going? I know. Does anybody know? You're exactly right. I think what she's saying is there is a blank right now on the outside of the box, so it's very hard to creatively have that vision of where you're going. With a lot of the ed leadership classes I talk about, I'll have teachers that will say, well, okay, is it the top down or is it bottom up? And what is it? It's both. You can have effective actions from the top down. We're going to look in a little while about mandates do work. Although we think mandates don't work, mandates do work to an extent. But you also have that from the ground level. Also, they'll say, well, is it the big picture or is it the detail? If you're either a big picture or a detail person, then you're only going to have success some of the time and not the rest of the time. It is both big picture, what is the vision, but the detail, what are the goals and objectives that we need to get to the vision. If you only work on the detail side, if you only have the goals and objectives, then you're not quite sure what's down the road. But if you only have the big picture of where you're going, but you have no map to get there, then you're going to struggle either way. So it's a combination of what we're talking about. So it is a jigsaw puzzle. I use essential questions rather than objectives. One of the essential questions that we're going to look at is how does change impact people, and how can we, as educational leaders, affect positive change. Change impacts us to the core. Change is not just about we have to change the curriculum, we have to change the manner in which we are. It's changing us, and there is loss with change. There is a grieving process with change, and I don't think that, and I don't mean this to be negative, but I don't think that some of our individuals who are our policymakers think about how individuals have to truly go through an emotional change in order to be able to do something that is physical. It's quite significant. So let's talk a little bit about change. One of my favorite researchers, Larry Cuban, he talks about, and I want you to think as we go through, I want you to think about the changes that you are in the midst of, and like I said, we could put out that chartboard and put a litany of all of the changes. That's what I do in one of my classes, say what's changing, and we could just go on and on. But I want you to think about the ones that are most directly impacting each of you, which is going to vary. It's going to vary. It's going to vary on your role. It's going to vary on your position, on your content, on your grade level. There are different changes. But think about what's impacting you, and we'll go through it. First of all, there's incremental change. This is what occurs the majority of the time. This is where we see some change in structure, but it's not at the fundamental level. Fundamental change is what needs to truly occur. When we talk about that we're going to think about when so many of our high schools went from the 6-period day to the 4, the blocks, and there were all kinds of block options. they first did an incremental change. They changed the schedule. And those teachers, though, who truly took it at a more fundamental level that said, okay, if I went from a 50-minute class to now I have 90-minute classes, that probably means that I need to do something different than I have been doing. So it means I have to change my teaching style, I have to become more interactive, I have to have group work. That was more fundamental. But the ones that said, oh, good, I just get to lecture that much longer, and nothing else changes, those were incremental changes. They didn't look at the rationale, the purpose behind the change. Change cannot just be implemented for the sake of change, although we know sometimes that certainly happens. When we talk about change, when we talk about incremental, that's more technical change. Now, technical change is not a bad thing. Technical change has to occur. If we say that in learning communities, you need to meet collaboratively, what's one of the first things that you have to find? Time to meet collaboratively. You know, your administrator should not say, go forth and collaborate. You know, it has to be more integrated. So you have to have, first of all, the technical change in the structure. And technical change, or incremental, is also known as first order. And if you think about first order, it's more surface level. Again, not bad. You have to have that. But it's more surface level, meaning that until we get to the adaptive change, which is second order and more fundamental change, then that first order will not be sustained. So if we just do something on the surface, but if we do not see that we are truly benefiting from those changes, if we're just doing it because we are being told to do it, if we don't understand the rationale behind how it's going to help us, how it's going to help our students, and notice I said how it's going to help us, and then how it's going to help our students, because with the learning community process, that's a big piece of it. It's not just the bottom line of everything we do is student improvement, definitely. But you have to filter it through improvement among teachers. You know, if you are still in a school that gets the results at the end of the year and says, oh, look at all these results. Let's think about what our students, need to do differently. Without first thinking about what do we, as teachers, need to do differently. And what are we doing that's very effective, and how do we make sure that we do more of that? So when we start disaggregating the data and we say, God, our students did so well there, you know what that means? We did well there too. But we say our students really struggle. We're struggling in meeting their needs. So we always have to look at change through the teacher first. And when we talk about a professional learning community, that's what it's about. We as professionals becoming individuals who are always willing to learn. And learn for the purpose so that we can translate our new knowledge, our new skills, our beliefs, so that the students are going to be more successful. If we want the kids to learn more, then we have to be active participants in that process. So when we get to the second order, we're talking about more fundamental change. And this is not easy. This is where you change. You truly have a change in your beliefs, in your values, in your habits. This is where you take the new learning and is truly applicable. And you have to think about it. That's why I said you can't shove off incremental or first order or technical change. You need that, because you cannot go to your faculty and say, okay, starting next week, this is what I need for y'all to believe. This is what I need for you to value. It's like, no. But you can put processes in place that work effectively so that we begin to see value in what we are doing, and then we have a belief that that can be effective. Schools that truly have in-depth, high-level processes for collaboration see the value in the process of working together and producing together. When we say working together, we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about collaboration, what it truly means to collaborate. So when you participate in collaboration, then you start to see the benefits and you start to believe that this is something that's good. Versus you might have a teacher that transfers to your school and you're meeting with them and you say, oh, and listen, on Tuesdays we have collaborative time period. They think, oh yeah, that doesn't mean anything because we collaborated in our school and nothing happened. Well, it really wasn't true collaboration. So initially they might not believe in the value of it, but then when they start to get benefits, and we have to each get benefits. When you work with individuals, and I've been, as you heard in the introduction, a long time in K-12. That's where the majority of my time has been. And I find it now that I'm at the university, there's some things that are quite different. One, you're going to see when my department chair drops are the students, which our students are not kids, I guess. But there's this whole process of very open, transparent negotiating, which is something that we didn't do in K-12. You don't do, you know. I know my superintendent would say, I need for you to do this, and I'd say, okay. And I'd go do it. I mean, that was the process. It wasn't like, well, what are you going to do for me? You know, there was none of that. There was none of that. But now, when we work, and we really do work in a collaborative way, I'll meet with people in the P-Card Center, especially since Ed Leadership is now in this beautiful building, and I know that we are in a small part of the beautiful building, because all the other rooms, we have 3 graduate classes going on right there. We'll meet together, we'll say, you know, we'd like to work together. And, you know, they've come to me, and I say, okay, so Amber, what do you need for me to bring to this? And they'll tell me, and I'll say, okay, this is what I need to get out of it. And it's like, okay, and it's very open and very upfront, and that way we are both very satisfied with the process, because we feel that it's going to be a really good, you know, good end product. The outcome is going to be good, but we're each getting something. It's like, what's in it for you, what's in it for me, and what's in it for us. And that's what we have to look at with the collaborative process. So when we look at change, you need to be able to think, is this a more technical change, a more incremental change, something that is first order, that is structured, that we have to take care of, but we can't hang our hat on it and think we're finished with it. If we do those technical first order changes and we do it well, what happens is sometimes we think that we're finished. Okay, we got that done. Check it off on the list. It's not a check off on the list. It's not going to stay there. You have to move it to the level of more adaptive changes to truly change the organization. This is a quote by Fulham, and I just put this up. I'm not going to use a lot of this, but I love the way he talks about that quite often we're in the midst of change, we forget to look at the personal level. And then, when we do think about looking at the personal level, sometimes we forget to look at the level of others. So I might be thinking what's happening with me and how is this affecting me, and I'm not listening to Deborah with what's affecting her. But when both of us are working together, we have to be aware, and we have to make sure that we truly understand the other level. Okay, we're going to do a little change simulation. And Dr. Roberts just walked in, our department chair. I'm going to mention that you were coming in. He is head of our educational leadership, and this is probably one of his favorite activities. I know he enjoys doing this. It's going to be a little crowded for us to do, but we're going to do it anyway, okay? It's going to be an activity, and I would like for you, let's see, we have odd numbers, so we're going to, you're going to face each other this way. We're going to do, you're going to face each other here. We're going to take each group, you're going to face each other, and even if we cannot have 100% participation, we'll do it as best as we can. I want you to just, I want everybody to stand up. Stand up. Okay, now I can see you. I didn't realize, okay, yeah, we go all over. Okay, what I want you to do, and I'm going to go through the directions, so if I can have attention here, you've already designated your partner. You are going to, in a moment, without any talking, you're going to turn away from your partner, so you are back to back, but I wanted you to stand and face them so you would know who they are. You're going to turn away from your partner, and when I tell you to, and you are going to change 2 things about yourself. Change 2 things about yourself. I'm going to count to 5. Anything, don't discuss it with your partner. You are going to make a change in your appearance. Well, if it's internal, it's going to be kind of difficult. Okay, so right now, I want you to back with your partner. Back to back with your partner. I'm going to count to 5 and change something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, hands down. Turn around and face your partner. I want you to talk with your partner, and I want you each to identify turn you back a couple more times and go back and forth, but it's a little, you know, there's quite a number of people here. So somebody tell me, how did it feel?
It felt confusing.
Felt confusing?
Yeah.
What did y'all do? And did you recognize?
I changed my name tag, I took my name tag off, and I buttoned my top button. She
Okay.
didn't notice it. She did her name tag, she turned it upside down.
Okay.
And she moved her cell phone, and that I really couldn't tell. And I just kind of got out of that, and without communication, it's kind of difficult to know what changes are going on.
Good, so without communication, so some change is more subtle, less noticeable. What else? Give me an example of, yes.
I think we didn't know that, I mean, we didn't know, we had to see what the person looked like first before we could identify the changes.
Oh, so you have to get to know them and what they were all
Well, at
about.
least look at them.
Uh-huh.
And I think, and that's kind of how I feel like the State Department is, they're throwing a lot of changes right now before we even, you know, anybody knows what the real thing is supposed to.
Okay, so before making a change, you need to consider what is already in place. Okay, good, okay? I saw a couple more hands go up. Yes?
Made you focus.
Made you focus though. Okay, so you got to focus. Okay, what else? What did most of you do?
And this reports are kind of anticipate, but even as you were doing the directions and I've done it before, the whole time I was thinking, what am I gonna change, what am I gonna change, what am I gonna change? And then I turned back around and all of
sure what has to be done, we feel uncomfortable with the change. We feel uncomfortable. Are we addressing this correctly? Are we assessing correctly? Are we focusing on what's going to happen, in March and April when the tests come down? Also, a couple of comments that were made. We become very resistant when we feel that things are too quick in terms of the process. If we have not internalized and become comfortable with the initial steps, it's very difficult to take the subsequent steps. So there's a resistance that comes. We will, no, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. That can be a little bit difficult. The new experiences can be an issue. If we don't have meaning behind, and for some people that's more important than others. It's like, but tell me really how this is going to be done. Tell me the rationale before. And when you have an understanding, well, the process that you were using is fairly good, but the results were really subpar, even when you did it as effectively as you can. So it's like, okay, so I'm doing the best I can, and you tell me it's not really getting to what I want. Well, then maybe I do need to consider change. So providing individuals what is not an acceptable change, because I said so. Just do it, don't ask any questions. Don't worry about it, it's going to work out. Those are not acceptable changes because you still feel that discomfort. So we have to look at. And then you see this last statement about real change requires changes in our beliefs, requires changes in our values. What we do is connected directly to our experiences. And our experiences are really tied into our values and beliefs. But as we said earlier, you can't start off with changing values and beliefs. You have to give people opportunity to experience something. And then that can make a difference in the change of belief. Now, these are the major things that have to be addressed. And I want you to think about in terms of all the changes. And go back to that learning community, the learning that is occurring. In order for change to be implemented, you have to make sure that we are providing the necessary knowledge and skills. I'm going to tell you what some of the research finds, that we concentrate a lot on skills and not enough on knowledge. So we're trying to do it, but we're not quite sure how to do it. We're not quite sure the what is. So we have to make sure that we are providing, especially with our new teachers, who haven't had the experiences that many of us have. If you haven't experienced it, then you're not quite sure how to adapt. So not only do we have to do it, but we have to have the appropriate knowledge and understanding behind the strategies. Beliefs and values, that's like dispositions. We know dispositions are critically important. You've seen individuals who are very skilled and have the knowledge, but if they don't have the appropriate disposition, that really can create a significant barrier. And then we have to know, what do you want for an outcome? Going back to what we said earlier, what do we want for an outcome? Okay, we're going to go through quickly some principles of change. And when we talk about principles of change, these are some focus questions just for you to think about. I want you to think about, I'll tell you what, we're going to use this later, but we're going to do it now. Somewhere I want you to write, if you have the PowerPoint out, if you have your little yellow tag and your little note page, I want you right now, each of you individually, this is not a collaborative exercise, I want you to jot down 3 of your most critical concerns right now regarding change. So they can be very personal. If you're the administrator, they can be about your organization, they can be about your plan. I want you to jot down 3 things that you are most concerned about. And maybe the concern, it might even be something, it doesn't have to be a negative. It can be something that you're feeling very good about. The 3 things relating to changes that are ongoing. Just write down a few words.
kids that didn't have it in the morning, you could tell that they weren't focused and, you know, all they were worried about was, I wanted something to eat. And once we
Excellent
started
example.
giving breakfast, I just found that it made a difference.
Excellent example. That was something, a change that was obvious with what happened. That was a good example of a very positive change. So in other words, when they started meeting the needs, certain needs of kids, in this case, meeting the needs made the change, the benefits of the change are readily observable. Okay? So meeting the needs. Good. Y'all don't go through change much? Come on. But what's something else? What's that?
Uniform?
Okay, sure. When uniforms, I remember when we went to uniforms in our district, that an early childhood teacher, when I walked into her classroom, said, "Don't they all look smart?" And that was such a, you know, she didn't mean smart like fancy, snazzy. She meant smart. Because they all looked like they were on the same page. And it was such a good feeling to see. Don't they all look smart, all ready to learn. Okay?
I'm not sure if this is correct, but since I've been teaching 30 years, warm fuzzies, hug the kids, personal contact, then you can't touch them, now you have to shake their hands. That is needy for the children and maybe for the adults, but I'm not sure, so now it's like, is it good or is it not good? Be careful, don't look at me, don't touch me, but yet you have to shake your hand, you know, it's like, that kind of.
I'm going to take Pam, just the example she just gave. Let's put that in a principle of change. That when you are implementing some type of change, you have to be aware of the school, the organization, and societal needs of the time. Or what is acceptable and appropriate in society. So what was appropriate years ago is maybe less appropriate now. Such as the you know, hugging your students and so forth. Good point, good point. So you have to think about, when you make a change, you have to think about what are the consequences of that change and how are the new actions going to be viewed. So it means you have to give thought to the process, and the thought has to go all the way through the process. Yes?
I was just gonna comment on the fact that more rates have changed when it comes to that.
Correct.
You have to be aware of, even though in your heart you may know that's the right thing, you've got to know what changes in our society because of other issues.
So when we think of principles of change in schools, we have to remember that schools, if you remember from one of your early classes, schools are open organizations. They reflect what is going outside, and what goes on outside definitely has an impact. So as we go through, I just want you to think of some of these things. We're going to answer some of the questions. I've already addressed a few about, you know, you might think which is better, required change from the outside or internally. We could have you split with opinions on each, but it's going to be that both ends have to happen. Let's go ahead and let's look at a few changes. Change is learning. It is as simple and as complicated as that. That's the first principle. That means if you are trying to implement significant, second order, adaptive change, and learning is not occurring to those who are implementing it, then there is going to be little to no success. Meaning you cannot go forward with the same knowledge and the same skills and the same dispositions and expect to see things improve. That will not happen. So when we say principles, these are based on patterns. Long time I kind of skipped through that. I'm not going to go through it all, but patterns that occur that, you know, through so much research we can see this is what happens when you address A and you address B, this is what you're going to end up with. So that's what we're saying. You have to be willing to learning new information, and not just learning. What's the next step? Applying that new information. If I go to sessions or I go to a class and I have all that new information, I keep it right here in my pocket and I never do anything with it in school, not helping me a bit. You have to apply that information. It's a process, not an event. You've heard that before, so what does that mean? That means you don't do it at one time and then you're finished with it. It is continual. Each time you improve, you have to look at what the next level for improvement is. You know, when I think about process and I think about change, I often think about our athletes, and especially since I know so many of us enjoy watching the Olympics. You know, they are doing feats that are just almost unimaginable. And when they have a break, they're meeting with their coach, who even though they are the best, their coach is giving them suggestions of how to improve. I'm always amazed at that, because they're open to learning and to finding out, how do I make it better? I know I'm number one, how do I continue to improve? So this is something that you have to think about. It is a process, which means you have to decide what's going to be done and what's appropriate to be done at a certain level. So we might have some smaller steps in the initiation phase, and then as we get more to where we're implementing it, then we have to really commit to certain things, and then if we want to sustain it, we have to bring that up to another level. The school is the primary unit of change. Right now, we're all concerned with self, because that's the process that we go through. But the organization is where the change has to occur. Now, that might seem a little contradictory to this next one, but it's not. While the organization is going to determine the level of success and whether you truly have changed as an organization, it's the individuals within who have to implement the change. So we say the organization is the unit of change. That means within our school, if we're going to make a change, we just can't have this group of people aware of what's going to occur and not this group of people. Everyone has to know everything in the process. You have to make everyone in the school aware, whether they like it or not. Sometimes they're going to say, no, that's fine, I don't need to know. Don't give them that option. Yes, they need to know, because they have to be part of the change. And there's sometimes you just have to recite certain things. So if you have someone who routinely says, oh, no, that's okay, I'll get that later. No, you have to be part of the change. I want you to be successful, and in order to be successful, we have new knowledge that has to occur, and you're going to be part of that. We make sure of that. So we have to think about each individual has to adopt that change. Interventions. And we can talk about interventions in terms of strategies, in terms of, it could be programs. We mentioned the word programs earlier. But interventions that are key, they are key to the change process. Meaning there have to be some things that are done. Thank you. Some things that are done in order to truly make sure that we're going to go through that cycle of change. So you have to think. There has to be forethought of what are going to be the most effective interventions. And when you try an intervention, whether it's a strategy, whether it's a program, whether it's some type of process, and if it doesn't give you the level of success, then you need to monitor and you need to adjust. You don't keep it just because it's what you adopted early on. When we have the right intervention in place, we're going to see a reduction in resistance to change. So if you're still having a lot of pushback, then you need to think about whether you are truly giving appropriate interventions. If you are giving resources to your teachers in order for something to be accomplished, and yet the teachers are still very uncomfortable, then you need to stop and think, are these resources meeting their needs? They might be meeting a little bit, but obviously they're not addressing all of the needs if we're still having a lot of pushback. Administrative leadership is essential to long-term change success. I mentioned earlier that it has to be top down and bottom up. It is virtually impossible. Virtually means it can be done, like you can use virtually clean, this is a little bit dirty. It's virtually impossible to sustain success in a school. I didn't say to initiate or to even implement it, but to sustain success when you do not have administrative leadership. And that leadership can be in the form of the principal, that leadership can be in the form of the central office. You have to have support from those individuals that are in charge. Now, we know who is, in terms of our research, the individual that makes the most, in terms of what is the most important in terms of success for students is the teacher, without a doubt. The second one is the principal, the leader. Sometimes I've heard excellent teachers say, well, I hate to go, to be in the administrative office because I'm not going to be able to impact the students. Oh, no, you do impact the students. You impact the larger. Are you impacting them at the level? If we did effect size, not quite, but you are definitely. So we have to make sure that administrative leadership, and that's why when you look at schools that are successful, you have successful teachers, you have successful formal administrative leaders, you have successful teacher leaders, which you're the representative to many of your teacher leaders. Facilitating change is a team process. Because we said each individual has to adopt the change, but the fact that it's the organization as a whole that is really making the change, we have to be able to work in successful teams. And a little bit after our break, which we can have in 2 minutes, Kevin, giving you something, we are going to talk about what makes us a your beliefs and your values. And you also have to think, what is the purpose behind your actions? For instance, suppose y'all went to school on Monday and your principal said, listen, Judy,